Now, the death toll from a fuel tanker explosion in Sierra Leone's capital has risen to 115. Hundreds more were injured in the blast in the capital, Freetown, on Friday. The explosion was sparked when a lorry crashed into a fuel tanker. It's believed that many of the victims were street vendors and motorcyclists who were engulfed in flames as they tried to retrieve fuel leaking from the tanker. For more on this, I'm joined now by Secretary-General of the Sierra Leone Red Cross, Kpawuru Sandy. A very good evening. Thank you so much for joining us, Kpawuru. Just take us back to the incident on Friday. How did it occur?
Well, firstly, there was an accident. A truck had to run into a fuel tanker and left it with a leakage. So there was fuel leaking from the tanker. And motorcyclists in the neighborhood started pouring the fuel that was leaking from the tanker. And there was a traffic jam in the area, and suddenly there was an explosion, and many people were affected.
Okay, I mean, we're looking at pictures now that you know, the coffin's being carried. I'm assuming this was the mass burial that took place. Can you also talk us through what happened during the mass burial?
Yes. So it so happened that when we had the explosion, a number of those who were killed were unidentifiable. So yesterday, the government allowed the burial of those people. About 75 of them were buried yesterday. So as you can see, we had to do the burial with volunteers from the government, but also Sierra Leone Red Cross Society volunteers, as you can see in those pictures there. They were buried somewhere in the outskirts of Freetown. Their families were there. The president was there. Religious leaders there to respect their religious rights, both Christian and Muslim, and it was a very sad day.
As the Red Cross, how did you assist, and how can you assist? Because I will assume there are many surviving victims, and you know, the survival of fire burns and so forth. How many people are critical at the present moment, and how are you assisting?
So the Red Cross, we are first responders. So the very night we had the explosion, our volunteers were there to render first aid, but also firstly to save people, to put together the corpses, help to move them to the mortuary. And now we are dealing with several issues. Firstly, tracing families. You know, as I mentioned earlier, most of the people that were killed have not been identified. So it's a difficult task to identify their families. And as I mentioned there, the guys that were, the motorcyclists that were around the tanker were not the only people that were affected. A number of people were just moving, some from work, some were just moving towards their houses, and they all got caught in the explosion. And most of those who died were actually not from the vicinity of the incident. So Red Cross is helping to trace those linkages with their families. But also, what we're trying to do is to support those in the hospitals. They are in very critical situation. A number of them have died since they were admitted in the hospitals. We're helping with psychosocial support, both for the victims, but also for their families. We're helping also in the communities to do risk communication and to also ensure that we prevent further damage, further destruction.
Are you satisfied with the response from President Julius Maada Bio's government?
Yes, generally people are very satisfied with the response. They've been very supportive to the community, to the people. They've been there on the very first day of the incident, and yesterday too, in the burial of the 75 people, he was there himself to pay his last respects to them. So I think the people are generally satisfied with the response.
Okay, thank you so much for bringing us up to speed with this very unfortunate incident in Sierra Leone, Sierra Leone's capital there, Freetown. Kpawuru Sandy, the Sierra Leone Red Cross Secretary-General.